Thanks for joining us on Special Interview. At every point in time, different thoughts overwhelm, permit me to use that word, the minds of people. Perhaps one of those thoughts is, what are the roles of women? Are they properly recognized and appreciated for whatever they contribute in nation building? And what are those restrictions and hindrances that have stood on their way to fully actualizing their potential? We'll be discussing as much as we can within the time we have all this, and I have someone who is passionate about that. She is a writer, a columnist, and a good governance advocate, Nnedinso Ogaziechi. Thank you so much for giving us your time on the interview.
Thank you.
While we had our conversation, you said something that appeared a bit strange, when you put it on the same table with what everybody or most people know or discuss, that the first feminists you knew while growing up were your father and your brothers. Could you throw more light on this?
Given what I know now, they were the first feminists I knew, because growing up, I wasn't told I was a girl in terms of maybe doing chores, or you couldn't do this because you were a girl, or you couldn't go there because you were a girl or something. And I didn't have such differences in gender differences, So, and I'm the only girl, but beyond that, we had, I grew up in a family where we had a lot of people that had boys, girls, so, but in terms of chores, for instance, the boys sweep. I mean, there was a rooster, more or less, there was no time where somebody says, oh, you do this because you're this. I mean, we know the ones that demand physiological strength. I mean, like maybe other more difficult jobs, but beyond that, no. My father wanted me to go to Cambridge, wanted me to go to Harvard, that kind of thing. So it wasn't a case of, oh, you weren't able to do this or you weren't able to do that, So then my brothers were very supportive. They more or less, because I was confused, I didn't know what to do. So they were the ones telling me, oh, look, you can do this, you can do this and that, so that's it.
Okay, it's not just about chores, it's also about opportunities. There were
yes.
open opportunities for everyone.
Yes, there are open opportunities. And my dad was a lover of education, and I think he was particular about me. I mean, funny enough, he was very particular about me going to school, going to the highest level I could go to.
Would you say that thought from him was because of the society where he found himself? He wanted to find a way of rewriting the narrative at that time, where women were not given as much opportunities as men in education and all of that?
I can't say that now, but he was a cosmopolitan man, more or less. I mean, he did unusual things. For instance, they didn't have a child till after about 14 years, but he stayed with my mom, which was very rare at the time. I mean, he had the means to, he was under pressure actually to maybe marry another woman. 14 years wasn't there were no fertility, assisted fertility at the time. He was an unusual man in the society at the time. So I think the love went from my mother to me, and there were no, he was very unconventional, I think. I mean, knowing what I know now, my father was very unconventional. Okay. Because even then, like now you see people, you see some people who are against delivery through cesarean, but two of us were delivered through cesarean.
At that time?
Yes, at the time. So he was very unconventional. So there was no reason to ask him, oh, why are you doing this because of your experiences? And I think because of his association as well, because he was a businessman at the time, and he had a lot of interaction with within the country and outside the country as well. So I think he wasn't the regular, if I can use that word, the regular
kind of man then.
Kind of African or Nigerian man then, yes.
Okay, are you concerned about how that word feminism or feminist, to be a feminist, is receiving different kinds of meaning and interpretation, some of them a bit extreme, some of them moderate. What do you see about all of that for you? Because for you to say that your father and your brothers were your first experience of feminists, so that suggests that you were at home with it.
Yes.
So what's your view about what's going on now?
There are people I call pseudo-feminists. I call them pseudo-feminists because their words and actions is at variance with what feminism should be. I think feminism is not about protecting the girl child exclusively and abandoning the boy child. It is just because we're in a society where, of course, we know how the society is, where in most homes, there's a difference between a girl child and a boy child. And you see people, you have marriages that break because there's no boy child or something like that. You have people sending their boy kids to school and abandoning the girls. So we know fundamentally that socially, religiously, and socioculturally, there are those things that the injustices, let's call a spade by its name, the injustices against the girl child. We know it from cradle to grave, in the sense that as a girl, sometimes you see embryos aborted because of their gender, which is injustice. Then the child comes out but to some extent, it's a pressure from the society, and we are all bricks that make up the society. In the sense that a girl child comes out and there is a bias already, because there are songs for a boy child, there are songs for a girl child. And in most cases, there's more value put to the boy child than the girl child. So it's all of us. And that is all out of ignorance, because in the first instance, who determines the gender of a child? It's the man that determines the gender of a child. But because of ignorance, there was a time when twins were killed. So that's education process is what we should be doing now. So feminism, in my view, is not about empowering the girl child in isolation. It's about the equity we're talking about. If you have two children, one a boy, one a girl, there shouldn't be any advantage. The boy child shouldn't enjoy any advantage over the girl child in terms of maybe going to school or having to do chores in the house, or we do it all the time anyway, because assuming there are people now that you have 3 kids, maybe the boy is the youngest, and you're living home and you're telling the boy child, take care of the home, take care of your sisters, even when they are older. So what are you doing? You are ceding that leadership to the boy child. Instinctively, he goes, oh, daddy said I should do this, that kind of thing. So it's all of us. It is not exclusive to any gender. But the misinterpretation I see now is where people misinterpret gender roles. We are all, man and woman, we are different for different reasons. We complement each other. We should complement each other. We're not in competition. So when we see some lady saying, oh, I won't cook, because you feel that those are feminist views, or that's not my idea. My idea is, how do you empower the girl child? Because the gap is much, especially in the political realm, but because now in the academia, women are doing well. In the corporate world, women are doing well, but politically, you see that thing we started as children, where you cede leadership to the boy child, culturally.
We'll look at that very quickly. Let's just get there now. Because if we believe that women are doing well in the academia and in the business world, they're also doing well, in the corporate world, they're also doing very well, but politically. Whereas politics is a game of numbers. And with about 49.32% of the Nigerian population today, according to the World Bank, made up of women, there is a sizable population for women to, get into wherever they want to get to politically. Are you part of the people that believe that women do not support women in politics?
I think there's a bit of blackmail because it is not that women don't support women, but there are other variables, you know, socio-culturally. You've grown with certain ideas that, oh, look, a woman shouldn't lead. Like that example I gave you about the telling your
At
boy
home.
child, you know, you seeded that. So if in future the girl child wants to say, oh, I'm older than you, I have to do this, and she says, oh, daddy said I should take care of you. You see, so that's psychologically we are groomed to believe that leadership is for men. Historically, in Africa, you know, you had queens, you had kings, and I mean there were roles that were complementing each other in terms of leadership. But with colonialism came the differences because the West came with their mono-governance and distorted the political situation at the time because we think politics started with independence and all that. No. We had queens,
Kings.
we had kings, and there were no agitations at the time. Instead, the agitations that started during the colonial period were women protecting men, like the Aba Women Riots thing and the one that happened in Calabar. They were agitating for better conditions for the men. Somebody like Margaret Ekpo, for instance, it was circumstantial for her to have emerged as leader of the women because she went to represent the husband. You understand? So when the colonialists left and we got independence, the men carried that mentality because already they're empowered economically. The women were not. Then they carried over that. I mean, of course, you know how power is. Political power is the climax because it determines how other powers are used or seeded and all that. So you saw a situation where even when some women took part in the agitation for independence, they are rarely mentioned. You know, the Fumilayo or Ransom Kutis and all that. They are rarely. When they say our founding fathers, nobody says our founding mothers. So that's then the military came, and of course, you know how many women are in the military. You know, I mean, it is men destroy and women nurture, right?
That's another angle of the debate.
Yes.
Men destroy and women nurture. So because if we get into that, it may take a full day
Yes.
to properly explain that from your perspective. But the concern for me and perhaps many of the people that will be watching the interview is that this position you're holding has been there for a while, and it appears not much is being achieved. For instance, in a Senate of 109 persons, we have about 7 senators. In the House of Rep, where we have 360 representatives, there are about 22 of them that are women. And with the involvement of women in politics over the years, is it just about the financial muscles, or what exactly is the restriction, those glass ceilings that will need to be removed or shattered, you know, depending on how anyone wants to say it, for the women to get to that point where they will be satisfied, or it will be seen as, okay, we have arrived at equity?
As it is now, it's a long journey. But I mean, they say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. So the first step is what everyone should be doing. The reorientation, the cultural and religious reorientation we must all have. And that is for everybody who has a platform of any kind to begin to educate people about the need for balancing of power. Because there's a reason God made us man and woman. It is not, I mean, you have 2 ears, you have 2 eyes. They are there for a reason. So I think we must start from the homes. How do we raise our kids? How do we raise our boys? How do we raise our girls? Do we instinctively empower the boys more than the girls? Then, starting off from there, then we begin to teach leadership in schools. You know that, when you talk to some students, for instance, they will tell you, when there's a competition for maybe captain of a class or something, they will either say, oh, because you're a girl, you can't lead. So psychologically, the kids are defeated from that young age. Like I told you, I mean, now I mean, most people say I write like a man. Why do I write on politics and all that? So I wouldn't know why, but I think because I didn't have such restrictions growing up. Absolutely, I didn't have. I mean, nobody was. You know, it's in school. I was competing with boys. I mean, I wasn't. It wasn't. You couldn't say you were better than me because I'm a woman or something like that. You can't. Reading what I write, you can't say whether it is a man or a woman that writes that. So when this reorientation starts from the home, and the clerics of all creeds, it doesn't matter Christianity, Muslim, and everything, that cultural fixation that, oh, women are not supposed to do this, women are not supposed to lead, oh, how can, I mean, I was listening to the presentation at the Senate where one of the female senators was talking about gender equity, and a man gets up to say, oh, no, in our religion, you don't talk about equality, you know. But there are other clerics in all the religions. When you read the Bible and you read the Quran, I don't think any of the holy books or even the traditionally there's anything like male-only leadership.
I would like to take your attention to an aspect of this conversation that is crucial to my thinking. Yes, you have looked at it as blackmail, but I still see it as something that is key, because it's a game of numbers. Yeah. I say again, yeah. I remember a certain Sarah Jibril, who was a presidential aspirant some years back. She came to the primary at Abuja. Incidentally, I covered that event at that time. She spoke eloquently and brilliantly. And then when it was time to vote, everybody lined up, including sizable number of women. At the end of the day, she had one vote, perhaps voting for herself, and nobody, including the women, nobody else voted for her. Don't you think it's time for women themselves to tell themselves the hard truth, that without supporting themselves, that time they are looking for may never come?
Yeah, the Sarah Jibril tale, I had an interview with her because of what you're saying. I had an interview with her, and I had interviews with most other women that were politically active at the time. So the rhetoric is not, the allegation that women don't support women wasn't actually what happened. There were other circumstances that affected the outcome. It wasn't a case of, oh, women
that were more important.
There were more. In politics, I mean, democracy is about numbers, it's about mobilization, it's about a whole lot of things. So it's not about women not supporting women, because I've talked to people that were there, I mean, that were with her even before she declared her interest.
Okay, let's keep Sarah Jibril's experience aside and look at the bigger picture of having, I earlier talked about 7 out of 109 senators being women, and 22 out of 360 House of Representatives members being women. This is very insignificant percentage that we have here. What are those factors that you would identify that inhibit the participation or involvement of women in politics? Yes, we have agreed that scholarly, in the academia, excellent performance, in corporate world, excellent performance, but in business, yes. But in politics, it appears to be a different thing. So what are those hindrances that will be identified and perhaps being considered for treatment?
Yeah, the hindrances are many. One, that the cultural values of a people. Politics and culture are intertwined. You can't separate them. So if, for instance, in most environments, the culture says, oh, the woman, you have to be under the man, right? You have to be respectful. And the religion comes and says you have to be submissive, you have to be... So those things go beyond the literal meanings. They go beyond, oh, look, I want to take part in politics. Politics is expensive. The women don't have the economic power. Then in our democracy again, you have the men have the political power. I mean, in leadership, like the political party. Like I've been talking to some of the political parties and their leadership. You notice that whether it's a conspiracy, I don't know whether to use conspiracy of the men against the women, because women are just it's just barely 100 years that women started voting. So the progression of inclusiveness hasn't been widespread enough to bring in the women, right? And politics is expensive, whether we like it or not. And how many women have the economic power? And that is why most of the political parties are now saying, oh, we'll probably not task women for nomination forms or whatever preliminary payments they have to make. But that is not enough. There should be...
Should that be encouraged?
It should be encouraged. I mean, one is better than zero.
Wouldn't that amount to admitting some form of unpreparedness or inadequacy or not having the capacity, lack of capacity? You know, when there's a fine, when there's a fee to be paid by men, and you now say, okay, for women that are also interested in that same position, do not pay.
No, it's for now. It's not like there's a perfect situation. We can't say, oh, that is because already, if we have 10 oranges to share, and already I have 5, and we are supposed to share it equally, which means if I have 5 already and we're sharing 5, I get 10. If I take 5 and you take 5, you still have 5. I'm still better than you. You understand? So it is not, I won't say it is, for now, the men have the economic power because they are the ones doing all the contracts. They are the ones in businesses. They are the ones that empower themselves.
In a certain administration in Nigeria, the most influential ministers were women. Yeah. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was in charge of finance. In fact, people say her as the prime minister in quote at that time. Desani Alison Madueke was in charge of petroleum. Very strong woman and very juicy quote unquote ministry. So we may not be fair enough on ourselves by not recognizing that women had come up at certain political levels before, but what they do with it may now be the different situation.
I don't understand. Are you doing an evaluation of Okonjo-Iweala and Nnedinso in terms of their official duties? If you're saying that I don't know whether you're saying...
We're talking about politics.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
But I don't think you begin to say, oh, Okonjo-Iweala was in charge of finance. Of course, you know that she excelled as a finance minister. She had, if you read her book, Fighting Corruption is difficult, I think. I can't remember the title right now. You would understand the things she went through. And her mom was kidnapped. And the reasons for the kidnap, well, she made it known in the book. Then people threw up Nnedinso. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, but I haven't heard from the court.
It's not just about the individuals. Okay, I'm saying that at some point in Nigeria, there were women who were at the
peak of their...
Peak, yes, and politically, and people positioned that men were not trusted to hold, and they were given that trust. But what they do with it
politically,
what they do with it politically, I'm trying to end with by saying that women may have opportunities, but they appear politically naive to know that this is an opportunity for me to advance a cause I believe in.
I think we should be able to differentiate between elective positions and appointed positions.
Okay.
Elections, they stem from an interest to do certain things. You have things you want to achieve. When you're appointed, you're working based on, it's like there are policies. Maybe for the political party, there are policies you have, their manifesto and everything that you have to follow. So it's not about what you want to do politically. in the first instance, and Okonjo-Iweala was not, I mean, you can't...
The
regular politician.
Yeah.
I think she was a technocrat, I mean, coming from where she came from, and given where she is now, I don't think she was a failure.
Okay.
Being a finance minister.
Now let's wrap it up. Let me find out from you, and another election is drawing near.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not sure, what do you think? Are you satisfied? If you're not satisfied with where women or the role they are playing, what are those key things that you will recommend quickly so that we...
Is it for the women or for the men?
For the women.
The women in politics already, I mean, there's a lot of mobilization, there's a lot of communication, information, training going on now. I mean, we are not where we were. We are not where we want to be, but we are not where we were. So, but in terms of performance, the women, before you evaluate them, you must put everything on a scale. I mean, they are just, if you have 360 people and just 22 are women, I mean, it's, I would, like I've talked to the political parties, their leadership, because they are the ones, I mean, the political parties are the vehicles, everyone enters to a destination. So, but you still notice that you have a monopoly of power at the political party level. I mean, like, you have the PDP that has had its convention. You have just 2 women, the Women Affairs, the woman leader and her deputy. Women. We are still waiting for the APC to see whether the National Working Committee of the party or the National Executive Committee of the party would include women in the sense of how many of them would get key posts. Who are going? Are the men going to support them? Is it that they don't have capable women? So, because at the party level, that is where decisions are made. You know, but the women are trying, but we are not where we want to be.
Okay, the women are trying, but they are not yet where they want to be. That's the summary of Nnedinso Ogaziechi's views about women in Nigerian politics. A lot depends on the women, but much more on the men, if I'm to summarize what she said, in allowing and giving the women the opportunity to find their voices and their stand in the politics of Nigeria. Thank you so much for giving us your time on this interview. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And to you that watched, thank you for watching. Let's do it again.